Good evening, everyone. Call this meeting to order, the regular council meeting of June the 19th, 2024. Notice the absence. Point 2, moment of reflection and respect. Thank you. Item 3, confirmation of the agenda. We have a resolution amended.
Yes. The council adopts the agenda for the meeting of June 19th, 2024 by adding the following items. Application for minor variance A05-24, 66 Terry Parkway, letters of objection.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Chapman and Councillor Oslach. Any additions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. Remind people to declare pecuniary interest if you have any. There are no delegations. All right, we have the minutes of previous finance meeting. Or is that, have we changed the agenda on that? Yes. We're going to the Committee of Adjustment first, sorry. Very good. Have a resolution?
Yes. The council does now recess and commence a committee of adjustment meeting at 7:02 p.m.
Mover and second, Deputy Mayor Barber, Councillor Van Raes. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead.
The Committee of Adjustment of the Town of Elmer is convened to consider application 5-24. Additional information relating to applications is available for inspection between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. weekdays at the Town of Elmer Town Hall. Signed written submissions are accepted by the Secretary-Treasurer prior to or during the hearing, and such submissions shall be available for inspection by any interested party. If a party who is notified does not attend the meeting, the committee can proceed and the party is not entitled to any further notice of hearings. Submissions or requests for notice can be sent to clerks@town.on.ca. A copy of the decision will be mailed to those persons who attend or are represented at the hearing and those who have filed a written request with the Secretary for notice of the committee's decision. The committee will receive input in the following order: presentation of the staff report by the Manager of Planning and Development, agent or applicant, the public, staff and the clerk. Application 5-24 made by Greg and Larissa Thompson as the property owners known municipally as 66 Terry Parkway in the Town of Elmer. The purpose of this variance is to permit the construction of a new accessory dwelling building that exceeds the maximum permitted accessory height from 5.5 meters to 6.55 meters.
Thank you. The Manager of Planning and Development.
Thank you, Your Worship. Within the application, just to provide some background, as mentioned, this is located at 66 Terry Parkway. There's an existing single detached dwelling on the property and a garden shed that will be removed. Moving on to Figure 1 shows an aerial photograph of the location of the property. Figures 2, 3, 4, and 5 depict the proposed building to be constructed on the property. It's important to note that the owners are no longer going to be proposing to construct the cupola that you see on the drawings there. The cupola is that kind of decorative feature. That's what really pushed up this height. And they had originally applied for a minor variance for 7.77 meters, which is 25.5 feet. And most of that was because of that cupola. They've now decided to not build that cupola. Therefore, They're only requesting the minor variance to be at 6.55 meters, which is 21 and a half feet. Moving on through my report. The application was circulated to staff for comments. Essentially, the Director of Infrastructure was in support of the proposed accessory building at 6.55 meters, was not in support of this of the proposed cupola. The owners were notified of these comments, altered their plans accordingly. I do want to note, however, that at the time I submitted this report, I had not received any comments from the public. That has since changed. I have received comments from the following people: Vince and Holly Pileggi at 133 Terry Parkway, Raymond and Alice DeCooter, 141 Terry Parkway, Barbara Forsdyke, 137 Terry Parkway, Katharina Clausen, 138 Terry Parkway, and Susie Gunther, 148 Terry Parkway. Your Worship, would you like me to read out what is in the letter? They've all essentially submitted the same letter. Would you
I
like me
think
to?
this fund,
Okay.
council has a copy of it, and it's available online, as you
Okay.
say, it is the same.
Okay, essentially, all of these neighbors are against the proposal to increase the maximum height of the accessory building in their neighborhood. It's important to note that should this minor variance be approved, the owners will be required to apply for and be issued a site alteration permit prior to being issued a building permit. And any engineering comments from staff would be provided and resolved through that site alteration permit process. So moving on into the minor variance, the first test, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan? And yes, it does. The official plan designation in this area is low-density residential, and it permits accessory buildings provided the main building, that being the single detached dwelling, has been built. Second test, does the variance maintain the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Yes, it does. The intent of establishing a maximum building height for an accessory building is to ensure it's compatible with and complementary with the lot and the surrounding land uses. By removing the cupola from the peak of the roof of the proposed building, town staff are of the opinion that they can support the increase in height to 6.55 meters, as it will still maintain compatibility and complementary with the lot and the surrounding land uses. With the exception of the increase in the maximum building height, the proposal meets all other R1 zone regulations. Third test, is the variance requested desirable for the appropriate and orderly development and use of the lands and buildings? And yes, the proposed increase in building height for the proposed accessory building will enable the owners to maximize the value and use of their property. By removing the cupola on the proposed building, the increase in maximum building height is considered to be moderate based on how much they're requesting. And it will still also allow walkable headroom in the upper section of the accessory building to access storage area. And that's essentially what they've applied for, is they're proposing a second floor on this solely for storage purposes, and they want to be able to stand up in the center of this second floor storage area to be able to access their storage instead of having to be crouched down to access it. Planning staff are satisfied the variance will facilitate an appropriate use of the property. And the fourth and final test is the variance minor in nature. It's important to assess minor, not in terms of numbers, but in terms of the impact to neighboring property owners, the environment, and municipal functions. The impact from the proposed variance with the removal of that decorative cupola is still considered to be minimal in terms of this test. In conclusion, it's the planning staff's opinion that by removing the decorative cupola for the proposed application, the variance is still desirable for the appropriate development and use of the property, and still meets the intent and purpose of the official plan policies and zoning bylaw regulations, and recommends that the variance be approved, subject to no concerns coming forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Next item is the applicant present. If so, do you wish to speak?
Your Worship,
Going to stay around for questions or something? Yes,
Your Worship,
Heather?
if I may, the owners, applicants contacted me this afternoon, and unfortunately, they're not able to attend. They were provided a Zoom link this afternoon, should they be able to have good cellular service where they have to be tonight to be able to log in. Have they They have not logged in? Okay. They were given the option to be able to log in through Zoom or be able to call in as well.
Okay,
So unfortunately, they're not able to attend this evening.
thank you. Any members of the public in attendance, if you wish to speak, please approach the podium and state your name and sign the attendance sheet. Good day, Barb.
I'm Barbara Forsdyke. I live directly behind the Thompsons, and that building will affect me more than any of the rest of them. But everybody that has signed sent in this form, which I brought in this morning, are, except for one person, all of us are directly connected to the Thompson property. Now, I did talk to some other people in the area, and they were all very supportive of me, and well, all of us. And but I didn't know how many people you need to come against anything. So anyway, I did the best I could in the time I had. So there's 8 of us here that say, no, we do not want that variance changed. And so if he wants to build the building, you know, according to the rules that stand now, that's fine with us. I mean, we don't have any say in that, but that's it, I guess. So.
Okay, thank you, Barb.
Okay.
Are there any others that wish to speak? All right. Are there any others that have mentioned speaking to you?
No, it's the submission earlier today, which is included in the agenda.
Communications, okay. Council, do you have any questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Barber.
Just a clarification to Heather. You mentioned in your report that all of the other criteria for building is appropriate. Just to confirm on the letters from the neighbors, lot coverage seemed to be an issue. Could you clarify that matter?
Yeah, absolutely. I have it all here. With every application I receive, I go through the zoning bylaw, kind of do a checklist to see, does it meet all the criteria in our zoning bylaw? So in terms of lot coverage, our zoning bylaw states that an accessory building cannot exceed 15% of the total lot coverage of the lot area. This building is proposing, with this building, it's proposing 5.54%. And the bylaw allows up to 15% lot coverage for an accessory building. So it is a fair bit under. In terms of the maximum, we also in the zoning bylaw have a maximum accessory building size. You can't exceed 75 square meters, and this building is proposed to be at 66.89 square meters. So it's under that requirement. The only thing this proposed building was not meeting was the height for an accessory building.
And that variance is now approximately 3 feet.
Yes. So now this variance, they're now requesting for the height to be at 6.55 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw states 5.5 meters.
Do you know from the neighbors whether the removal of the cupola satisfied or more, came closer to satisfying the neighbors?
So I can say that I did have Barbara Forsdyke. She has called me, and I have spoken with her. I also spoke with Alice DeCooter and have communicated this information to them as well. I understand in my conversations with Alice that she still was not satisfied, even with the removal of the cupola. She was still upset over the increase in height.
The maximum height?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Roselage.
Your worship, Heather, can you decrease the height?
You can decrease the height on any proposed building. It does kind of change the architectural designs of it. Am I correct, Terry? If you want to just kind of speak to that quick.
Yeah, through your worship to Councilor Roselage. I mean, they can adjust the design in any way. It would just decrease the space in the second floor, if you will. But, I mean, we don't have the detailed architectural plans, we just really have the facade layout, but, I mean, anything can be designed or redesigned.
Can they decrease the height to 18 feet? Which is the minimum.
Unfortunately, the owners aren't here tonight to speak to that kind of
I'm sure,
request.
I'm sure that you could decrease it to any height
You can
you
definitely,
wanted.
you can definitely decrease, you can design anything
Yeah.
to work and meet code.
Somebody else had a question? Councilor Desrosiers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple things. So the explanation that they're looking to expand the maximum height to accommodate a walkable second story, I'm just a little confused because looking at the plans here, it shows the main level being 9 feet tall. So hypothetically, if this structure was the maximum 18 feet tall, that would allow not another roughly additional 9 feet from the middle of the upper level to the peak, right? So you would have, in my eyes, plenty of walkable headroom. Like 9 plus 9 is 18, correct? So just math.
Yeah.
So you would still have plenty of walkable headroom on that second story. And as the current drawing is a peak, you would walk up in the middle and you would put your storage in at the sides, from just me trying to process it in my mind. So there's that. And secondly is, we're talking about lot coverage and how it's minimal for the proposed property. But the concern that the neighbors are raising is that although it might be minor lot coverage for that lot specifically, for them it's major because their lots are so small in comparison that you put a large structure like that directly behind the fence line, you're essentially closing them off. So looking at that property, using my own property as a term of reference, which is, if not larger than these smaller lots, if I was to put a 21, 22-foot structure directly behind my fence, it would be very enclosing and very congested. So I can definitely sympathize with the neighbors' concerns. And the fact that they're willing to compromise at the maximum 18 feet, I feel it still hypothetically should achieve that walkable second story that this applicant is looking to have. So I guess I'd like some clarification on that. If you guys have any, from looking at the drawings you've received, is 9 feet not acceptable for walkable headroom?
I don't have any additional building plans, like I'm not, like, the thing is this, I understand what you're saying, you got 9 feet and 9 feet, but I think there's also different things in terms of like, is there insulation or building materials or separation of firewalls between the two stories that might take up some of that height. So it may not be, as you're saying, like that full 18 all the way up to the peak. There may be, like I said, building materials. But again, I'm not a building official, but I do know these buildings all have to meet fire code and have insulation and different things like that. So that may take up some of that height within it. So it may not be that true 18. But again, I don't have that level of detail, nor would I need that in order to be able to process this minor variance. So the applicants haven't provided that level of detail at this time because they're not at the building permit stage.
Thank you, Heather. Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that this particular planning matter is one of the more sensitive ones where on the grounds of the application, it could be considered very reasonably to be a minor variance. But on the neighborhood situation, it becomes very sensitive.
I think I heard Councilor Desrosiers say something that there was a compromise at 2/8, or if they went to the 8-foot, there was a compromise by the people who were objecting to this. Is that what you were saying?
From what I've heard from Ms. Forsdyke and from what I've spoken to the neighbors is that, yes, if we don't approve the minor variance, but the applicant is obviously still able to build at the maximum height, which is 18 feet. From what I've gathered from the neighbors is that they're fine with that. That's a happy compromise. So to me, I don't see why we wouldn't strive for like that type of mediation, but.
I was just double checking so that the 18 feet is a compromise, is that right? You're looking at Barb, she's shaking her head, yes, maybe. We have somebody online, we have the owner online?
Should be able to hear us.
I'm sorry.
Greg Thompson. Hello, Greg, can you hear us?
So we're just looking at an audio feed, is that what we're looking at? Yep.
Yes, there's no visuals.
I think we've lost it. Yeah.
Said successfully connected, but I don't think you can hear us.
Okay. In the meantime, any other questions or comments that council has? Councillor Chapman.
Through your worship, I just have a comment. We're talking about a compromise, but the bylaw says that the 18.5 is acceptable. So it's not really a compromise. They're allowed to build the structure with that height. So I just want to make it clear that that is acceptable, and whether the neighbors are happy or not, it's what our bylaw states. And so I just want to make that clear that if they chose to do the 18.5 height without the variance, that it's, our bylaw states that that is allowed.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. With no further discussion then, we'll consider the resolution. Oh,
That's report plan 18-24, planning evaluation report, application for minor variance, A05-24, 66 Terry Parkway be received, and that the application for minor variance A5-24, seeking relief from section 31D as follows, that the maximum accessory building height shall not exceed 6.55 meters, be approved.
okay. Mover and the seconder.
Your worship, could you clarify that, the resolution again?
Sure. So the resolution is that report plan 18-24, planning evaluation report, application for minor variance A5-24, 66 Terry Parkway be received, and that the application for minor variance seeking relief from section 31D as follows, that the maximum accessory building height shall not exceed 6.55 meters be approved.
Which is the original resolution that you have. Happy with that, Deputy Mayor? Fine? I can see the wheels going in his head.
Yeah, the wheels are going around. So we're back just to the metric and imperial. We're down to 21 feet, is that correct? 21 and a half feet? Whatever the metric equivalent is?
Yeah,
Yes, 21 and a half feet,
6 point something meters.
6.55 meters, yes.
okay.
Be approved. Is
Be
that correct?
approved, yep. That is the
So
resolution.
you've heard the resolution. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Barber, seconded by Councillor Van Raes. Any further discussion?
Could we have a recorded vote, please?
I was going to ask if anybody else wanted to say anything further, but not, so we'll go with the recorded vote.
Councillor Van Raes.
No.
Councillor Chapman.
No.
Councillor DeRosier.
No.
Councillor Oslich.
No.
Deputy Mayor Barber.
Yes.
And Mayor Cookit. And the motion is defeated.
very much. And we should have a resolution to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment hearing.
That the Committee of Adjustment meeting does now close and reconvene as council at 7:25 PM.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Chapman, Councillor Ozelach. All in favor? Carried. Now we'll move to a public meeting under the Planning Act. Resolution.
That council does now that council does now move into a public meeting under the Planning Act at 7:25 PM.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Crozier, Councillor Chapman. We have statements to make concerning
I'll have
this.
something to read here. This public meeting is taking place under the Planning Act 1990 as amended. At this public meeting, council will hear public representations regarding planning evaluation report, application for zoning bylaw amendments, Klassen, represented by Courtney Klassen. Please note that those who do not provide comment or written submission prior to the decision of the appropriate authority may not be afforded the right to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Council will hear comments in the following order: presentation of the staff report by the Manager of Planning and Development, agent or applicant, the public, staff, and the clerk.
All right, thank you. Could the Manager of Planning and Development please provide a report?
Okay,
Heather.
thank you, Your Worship. The application you have before you this evening is a rezoning application. It's to rezone the subject lands known as 52 Warren Street from residential type 2 to residential type 3, special provision 13. And this is to permit the construction of a semi-detached building with the following requests in the zoning bylaw. The first request is reducing the lot area for a semi-detached building from 600 square meters to 404.69 square meters. Second request is to reduce the lot area for one half of a semi-detached dwelling from 280 square meters down to 202.34 square meters. The third request is to reduce the rear yard depth from 7.5 meters to 5.03 meters. And the last request is to increase the lot coverage for the main building on the property from 40% to 42%. Figure 1 shows the aerial photograph of the property known as 52 Warren Street. Figure 2 shows the proposal for the proposed semi-detached buildings. The application was reviewed in terms of the provincial policy statement, the current provincial policy statement of 2020, as well as the proposed policy statement for 2024. And this proposed application is consistent with both provincial planning documents. And next, the County of Elgin official plan. This application was reviewed against the 2015 consolidated version, which is the current version in effect, and the proposed county official plan, which was adopted May 14th, 2024 by County Council. So this application was reviewed in accordance with the policies in the county's plan, and I can state that this proposed zoning bylaw amendment conforms to the county's official plan. Moving on to the Town of Aylmer official plan, I reviewed the applicable policies that apply for this, and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment does conform to the town's official plan. Moving on to the proposed zoning bylaw, as I mentioned, the owner has requested to rezone the property from R2 to R3 with some special provisions to accommodate this proposed semi-detached building. In terms of consultation, the application was circulated to town staff and all the applicable public agencies. No comments of concern were submitted by town staff as well as the public agencies. The application was also circulated to all the neighboring property owners within 120 meters of the property, and no comments were received at the time of submission of this report. So in conclusion, it's the Planning Department's opinion that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial policy statements and conforms to the county's official plan and the town's official plan, and that the zoning bylaw amendment should be approved, subject to any concerns coming forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. Is the applicant or agent present? And do you wish to speak, or you just want to wait for questions? Okay, thank you. Are there any other members that you know of that wish to speak? Have we had any additional communications? No. Okay, council, questions? Councilor Desrosiers.
Just looking at the drawings here, just want to confirm parking availability as a duplex. Is there a garage, sorry, and then there's parking out front, or what is the parking situation for this property?
I can speak to that, if I don't mind. So yes, there is garages proposed for each semi-detached unit. A garage is counted as one parking space. The driveways are being proposed to be 20 feet, 4 inches wide by 18 feet in length. And that is all within the private property before it gets to town property. And that is for each of the semi-detached units.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no further discussion, we will have the resolution in regular council, so we have to have a resolution to come out of this session, this public meeting resolution.
That council does now close this public meeting at 7:31 PM and reconvene the meeting of council.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Desrosiers, Councilor Oslach, all those in favor, is carried. Now the resolution from the public meeting.
That report Plan 19-24 regarding Planning Evaluation Report, application for zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 01-24 be received, and that the council of the town of Elmer approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 01-24 in accordance with bylaw 46-24.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Chapman, Councilor Desrosiers. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Next, I do see Christine has arrived. So we'll move on to the presentation of the final 2023 financial statements resolution.
Yes. That the report respecting the 2023 financial statements be received as information, and that council approve the 2023 financial statements provided by Christine Scrimger and Company.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Von Reyes and Councilor Chapman. Thank you. Ms. Scrimger,
Hi there.
where's yours?
Okay, we're just. Technology. Perfect. Am I over there now? There we go. Perfect. Okay. Wonderful. All right, good evening, everyone. I am Christine Scrimger. I'm the auditor of the town, and these are your draft audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2023. I'll do my report like I normally do, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. I'm going to start by a few some comments overriding all of the financial statements. So the first thing is these are called consolidated statements, and that's the reason for that is because we eliminate 50% of the EECC because Malahide owns that. We also so we eliminate that, and then we add into your financial statements the Elmer Secondary Water Board because you're 97% user of that water board, so you really are the predominant user. So when we get into some numbers, that will be affected by those consolidations that I just mentioned. As well, there was a new accounting standard in 2023 called the Asset Retirement Obligation, which is really going through the assets, all your tangible capital assets, and determining if there was any and for the most part, it's asbestos that would have to be remediated at some point in the future. I want to thank your staff, that's all sitting right here, for going through that listing and helping us get those numbers into your financial statements. I would comment that there wasn't a lot in the town of Elmer, which is great. I do 12 of these municipalities, and the numbers have been much larger in other municipalities. So, and then lastly, I just want to thank the director over here who's trying to not make eye contact with me for all her assistance in getting this audit done. It is a lot of work for your staff, and we appreciate all of their hard work. So let's go through the financial statements, and as I go through, please don't hesitate to stop and ask me any questions that you might have. So the first 2 pages of our audit is our independent auditor's report. I think this just went off. Oh, does it come on and off? Is that? No, it's on. I'm good. It is what we call in the auditing world a clean auditor's opinion, meaning that we had nothing material that concerned us. It is dated as of today's date, which is the date of this meeting, and hopefully the date that they get approved. Under Canadian auditing standards, council is those charged with governance, and so we have to get your approval before we can finalize these statements. I will comment that we do look at revenues, expenses, both payroll and other operating expenses, and it's on that basis that we have made this clean auditor's report. So now I'll get to some numbers here. Okay, so this is your statement of financial position. You may be more familiar with a balance sheet, and I'll just comment on some high-level things, and as if you have any other questions, just let me know. So this line right here is the net financial asset line. You might see that there. So that's really what the town would have in their bank at the end of the day if everyone paid you what they owed you and you paid off all of your liabilities. And clearly you wouldn't pay all your debt in 1 year, but this really just gives you an indication of your financial position. And as you can see, it significantly increased from the prior year by about $2 million. And so I'm always looking for that as an indicator of where you are financially. And that, I will mention, is even after we issued new debt. So under the second last line before that, called net long-term liabilities, we issued new debt for $6.7 million to assist with the water tower project. And so even after that, we're still increasing our overall financial position. Everything below that line are tangible capital assets, which are needed to provide the services, and so therefore you're not going to turn around and sell those. Obviously, water, wastewater, and roads would be your major ones. The next thing I look at is in that net non-financial assets. Are you replacing your assets equal to or in addition to your amortization? And in fact, you are. You can see there if you add tangible capital assets plus the capital work in progress, which are simply capital assets that are just straddling the year end, you have in fact increased by $6.4 million. The capital work in progress, the large one there, is the water tower, as you can suspect. Coming down to the accumulated surplus at the end of the day of $92,168,000 versus $85 million last year, so a significant increase of about $7 million, and that's really that new investment in capital assets. Any questions on that statement at all? Okay. So then we have this next statement, which is your revenue and statement of operations showing your revenues and expenditures. So we have the budget for 2023, the actual 2023, and then the actual 2022. You'll notice over the 2022 column, there is a note number 2 reference that just relates to those asset retirement obligations. So because of the way financial statements are shown, we had to go back to the beginning of 2022 to show the impact of this new accounting standard, because these are the 2 years that are presented on your financial statements. And you can see at the end of the day, it was about $166,000 increase or decrease in your surplus from the previous year. And that's not your operating surplus, that's your surplus for this asset retirement. So it's not taking away from your actual operations. So now I'll go down and just highlight some things between the budget and actual. Under revenue, the one main thing that stands out there is your investment income. So if you remember, in 2022, interest rates were at about 1%, if that, and in 2023 they have increased significantly, and so that's really shown here in your investment income. And really, that's the main area. User charges, I also remind council, 2022 was the full, or still had COVID restrictions in the first few months of that year. And in 2023, all the restrictions were lifted. And so you see things like user charges going up, and down below, we'll see the recreational costs went up as well. So as we go into expenditures, your budget was 13.4 million, and you see that your actual is 14.6 million. That does not mean council overspent by that. Amortization for the year is 1.8 million. So if you add the 1.8 million to your budget, which is a non-budgeted item, you get to the almost expenditures right bang on, so you're really spending within your budget. And so then the next thing I look at is that excess of revenue over expenditures before others, so 3/4 of the page down right here, making sure that you are covering your operating costs with your operating revenues, and you can see there just under 1.6 million last year and 1.75 this year, so maintaining that surplus. Everything under that line really relates to capital, and so I'll comment on a couple things. The government transfers related to capital, that was the ICIP grant that we accrued at the end of the year. Developer and other contributions are just DCs that we recognize in the year. The investment in earth is not something obviously you budget for, that's just something that you benefit from, and so that's that increase there. And then gain loss on disposal of capital assets, that's the sale of White Street. And then post-retirement benefits is just the based on the actuarial review. Any questions on that statement at all? I know there's a lot of numbers there, but happy to entertain any questions. Okay, seeing none, I'll continue on. The next statement is your statement of cash flow, so just showing all your increases and decreases of the non-cash items on the balance sheet. Sorry, I should have moved forward here. And I don't have a lot to say here. Most of them revolve around the capital assets, which I've made a comments on those, so I won't spend much more time on this statement or the next one, which again is just a breakdown of really the capital and in more detail of what's gone on there. And this is where you see the new asset additions. If you add the change in tangible capital assets as well as work in progress, that's where I was getting that $6.4 million new assets. And then the 1.8 million offset with amortization. We then get to the notes to the financial statements, and I won't spend a lot of time on these unless anybody has any questions. I do want to comment on your surplus note, which I think is probably the note that council would be most interested in, and I'm going to get there here in a minute. There we go. Okay, so this is your breakdown of your surplus. Let me just go to my page so I can see the numbers a little better. So the surplus for the year was just over 500,000, your operating surplus, and that has been moved into reserves as directed. The business improvement area is just their separate surplus there. Then we see the reserves set aside for specific purposes, and you can see then again a significant increase here from last year to this year. And really, the big number that shows up is the replacement of water systems. Because we got that 6.7 million of new debt, as well as we've earned the ICIP grant, we sort of got the debt in advance of when we actually spent the money. So we've moved that over into the reserve fund to protect it, and we'll bring it out as we continue in that project, finishing that project. And then the industrial land, industrial development is the net proceeds of that sale that I mentioned before. Coming down to the total surplus of the 92 million. And again, a good portion of that will come out when we finish the water tower project. At the back of your statements are two schedules. One is the tangible capital asset statement. Sorry, here we go. Which breaks down the tangible capital assets by their components. And again, I'll remind council this is at historical cost. And so as we amortize these assets at historical cost, we want to be replacing them at even, as you are doing, at an amount greater than your amortization, because as we know, projects today cost much more than what they cost 20 or 30 years ago. And you can see linear assets are about 75% of your total capital, and those again include water, wastewater, and the roads, bridges. And then the last schedule, is your segmented schedule. So the province of Ontario requires you to file a financial information return. And it's all done by what we call functions. These functions are defined by the province. And so this breaks down your revenue, all your revenues and expenditures by those functions. And this is a segue between these audited financial statements and what gets filed with the province in your FIR. They do check this. We get questions on it, so it's always important that you understand that this is kind of the thing they look at, so they make sure that what we submit on your behalf is jiving with what the audited statements say. And that's my report, but I'm happy to entertain any questions, as I said.
Council, excuse me, Council, Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you. So bottom line, we've enhanced our fiscal position.
Yes?
And you've stated in the past that we were very compatible with similar-sized municipalities. Does that still stand?
It does, and really, other than this new debt that you took out this year, you're pretty much completely paid off all of your debt. So you really haven't taken out new debt for a number of years, and so that's a great sign too, that that's the case.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Councilor Roselage.
That's my question.
I knew you'd ask me, you always do. I don't want you to disappoint me.
How do we compare to other municipalities?
So it's difficult because you are very much an urban municipality, so you don't have a lot of the agriculture and farmland type things that a lot of my rural municipalities would have. And then my other urbans are the city of St. Thomas and city of Woodstock, which are significantly larger. But what I'm looking at, I'm always looking at your reserve fund balances and where you are, because really that's your savings at the end of the day. And as I mentioned when we went through the statements, those have increased significantly this year, which is what I want to see. As your staff can attest to, water, wastewater projects, in order to support growth, you need to have those projects, and that they're expensive projects, and there's not a lot of government grants out there, although you were one of the fortunate ones to get that grant for the water tower. So that's a huge bonus, because not everybody's getting those, so.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. There's a good news report, and certainly our financial team is to thank for some of it, a lot of it. We're talking about debt. Question I would have, is there such a thing? Is there a number or a percentage that indicates how much debt is acceptable in terms of reserves? Is there such a number?
So what happens is we file your FIR every year, and then the province gives you back what's called an ARL, which is your annual repayment limit that you can have. I also remind council that all of your debt is from, or that $6.7 million is from rates. So that does not fall on the taxpayer in general, but it does fall on all ratepayers that are in the water, that use water. So it's in an urban area, that's almost the same number of people, but that will come from the rates, the water rates. To pay that back, that won't be on the tax bill. So you have very little debt that would even impact your ARL.
Okay. I noticed that our revenue from taxation is actually less than half of all of our revenue. Am I reading that correctly? And if so, how does that compare to other communities? Do you know?
Your tax rates are fairly competitive with other communities, and again, it's a lot of that's based on assessment based too, which is really out of your control. What is happening in all municipalities is that you're seeing more user pay type revenue, because simply it has to happen, or you're just going to end up taxing. Your tax rates are just going to go through the roof. So definitely seeing that there.
Thank you. Sorry, any questions from council? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, Christine. I would like to finish consent agenda and then recess for the finance department. So we'll do the consent agenda next. Resolutions.
Yes. That the June 19th, 2024 consent agenda be received for information. and that the recommendations included in the staff report be adopted, and that council approve the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on June 5th, 2024.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Chapman, Deputy Mayor Barber. Any comments or questions on any of these items? Seeing none, all those in favor, it is carried. So I'd like to, at this point, recess to go into the Finance Committee.
So, that council does now recess to commence a committee meeting, or Finance Committee meeting at 9 p.m.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Desrosiers, Councillor Chapman. All those in favor, is carried. Thank you.
We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, all present except for Councillor Rahi. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. We do not have any delegations. Minutes of the previous Finance Committee meeting.
Yes, the committee adopts the minutes, noting no errors or omissions.
Can we have a mover and a seconder? Member DeRossi, Member Ospech. Further discussion? Oh, sorry. Member DeRossi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, it says present are committee chair X and then 2 counselors. Does there have to actually be names there or no?
Pardon me?
In the minutes, it says present are, and then it says committee chair X and then counselor. Does it need to have any details in there or no?
Sorry, we will correct that.
Okay. Very minor, but I just didn't know if it needed to be there or not.
We have a resolution to accept the minutes as amended. All those in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you. Before we get right into it, I would like to thank the members of council and the staff for their efforts during our last budget sessions. Here we go again with as many challenges. The people have hopes of additional services, while at the same time, expectations to reduce the tax rate. We have to balance the needs and wants of council. It is not the role of council to micromanage any department. That is the function of senior staff. Our role on council is to create a strategy to move forward and establish the means to do so. We have a challenge before us. Let's begin that process. Correspondence and updates. Seeing none. Staff reports. Director of Legislative Services, the 2025 budget survey.
Yes, the resolution to that is that report clerk 18-24 entitled 2025 Budget Survey be received as information.
Okay, a motion to receive by Councillor or Member Chapman and Member Van Raes, and the report.
Yes, so the budget survey this year should look quite familiar to council. We're reusing a number of the questions from last year just for continuation purposes and comparison. One of the changes we've made is last year's survey was themed around recreation. We had 2 questions related to recreation. We have removed those questions because we have a second survey going out later in the year by the Parks and Recreation Department, specifically looking at a lot of the items around the master plan. In place of those questions this year, we've been following up on the Old Town Hall meeting that we had about a month ago. So we have 2 questions added, 3 questions actually, to do with community support for the library as a service of Elgin County, as well as questions on usership at the Old Town Hall Theater, just seeing which of our respondents are users, as well as looking at their vision for the future of the facility. Beyond that, we have added an additional question related to community projects, just seeing if we can collect any kind of positive ideas from the community through the budget survey. And then we have an additional question just on age, just for kind of additional information about the respondents for council and possible comparison. With that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Rosie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, I'd just like to say that I really appreciate budget surveys or surveys in general. I think they're a really important aspect of planning, and they really allow residents an opportunity to provide feedback and enable council to make informed decisions. As a preliminary consultation, the draft survey was shared with peers to gather initial feedback. I have highlighted some areas of concern and suggestions for consideration of this committee. Firstly, the terminology and choice of wording for question number 6. The current wording is, what would you say are the top 3 priorities for Elmer right now? The terminology is confusing, this terminology was confusing for participants as several answers ongoingly are considered priority, i.e. emergency services, water, public health, etc. Participants stated that they felt anxious to neglect these items in fear they will not be prioritized by council. The question, in my opinion, should be reworded to state, what would you say are the top 3 municipal issues facing Elmer today? Number 2, the survey participants felt overwhelmed by the volume of answers provided in question number 6 and reported that answers appeared complicated, vague, and/or discursive. Upon examining the questions, I concur and further note that various listed answers fall under the purview of higher-tier government. While these items are vital, they are not tangible budgetary items that a municipality can expense. This overwhelms participants, perpetuates a false narrative, and construes the data collected. Additionally, several listed items appear to be repeated and/or similar in nature. Condensing the answers into 12 tangible, clear, and concise categories provide participants confidence and clarity. Third, the last answer to question 6, i.e. I don't know, should be removed or replaced with a fillable other. As the following question 7 provides space to include additional commentary, this answer appears inefficient and redundant. Fourth, the addition of the item general government and admin, staffing, wages, and expenditures to answer for question 6. According to the Town of Elmer 2024 preliminary budget report, quote, salaries and benefits account for the largest budgetary expenditure, yet we do not include them within this expense within our survey. I understand that current salaries and benefits cannot be reduced, understandably. However, wage increases, staff increases, and operational expenditure can be reviewed should residents feel the matter is worth debate and/or discussion. Positive feedback received from participants included the survey length was adequate, remaining questions were simple and concise, opportunities to provide unregulated feedback or suggestions were appreciated, and the inclusion of questions specifically related to Old Town Hall.
Do you want to answer that?
Sure.
We can go back to it if you need to.
Yeah, sure. There was a lot of comments in there.
Well, the first one was the terminology from the current wording is priorities, and I feel it should be changed to municipal issues.
That is it's the wording that we used in last year's budget. And to touch on the next point, we were trying to really capture a breadth of issues to really see what residents wanted us to focus on. And when we have issues such as that would fall traditionally outside of the direct jurisdiction of Elmer, those are still issues that council can exert efforts towards in terms of advocating to other levels of government or potentially looking at more innovative initiatives here. I think that was the intention of the question last year. Certainly, I'm just pulling up the results here from last year. Sorry, just one moment. So last year, our top three results were affordable housing, active living and recreation, and then active living, parks and recreation, which I think those have been a focus for council over the last year. But there was responses for a number of the items. We did reduce the number this year, and I did try to consolidate some which were overlapping. But certainly we could do that further again. Next, what was the next question?
Just to clarify, Member DeRosa, is your intent of the question, other than the word priority, to condense the list?
The list, yeah, it's currently sitting at 35 items. I think it can be condensed into 12, I would say, like active living, parks, trails, and recreation. Like, I don't see why those can't be amalgamated together. The terminology as well for internet, like high-speed internet, the participants that I gave this to, they were confused. They're like, we already have high-speed internet. And I said, I think it's to do with diversifying providers, correct? Is that what the intent of that line item is?
Certainly, yeah. The primary issue for most of our residents is just the lack of providers in
Diversity.
the area.
Yeah, so like that, for example, like that confused them, because they're like, we already have high-speed internet. So it's just terminology, a lot of terminology, and then items that are either not, like social issues such as childcare, like I was under the impression that that was more so provincial. Paramedic services, that's the county, correct? Library is county. Public health, I thought that was county and provincial. So there's things on here too, like they were saying to me, they're like, well, what are you going to do about this? What type of budgetary amendments are you going to make to change this? And I thought it was a good question. So, like if you're suggesting that these items on here, regardless of who's in charge of it, that we can actually have some type of fiscal involvement, then I mean, I guess keep it within the budget discussions, but if we can't actually expense anything for tangible results, I don't see the purpose of adding it within this question. It basically just congests the question and we're not getting tangible results to make tangible decisions.
Would it be fair to say that the broader question is to encourage the people to search into a larger dimension and bring forward their thoughts? If those out of the longer list are their priorities or thoughts, rather than shrinking it down into selective areas, would that not be more beneficial?
Personally, I feel that if we're taking this information to then utilize it to make budgetary decisions, those answers should be directly related to budgetary items that we can actually put into effect. So if we can't, then I don't see the need of adding it within here personally, but this is an open discussion, so.
Correct. Member Cook?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to say Mr. Mayor, but not Mr. Chair. I agree. I think this list is way too long. There's too many things in it for people to make decisions about. Now, I guess I missed last year in looking at it because when you said that this is basically the same list as last year, but even shorter than last year. Because if you're going to use it as a tool to do anything, number one, I think we should shorten it. Number two, I think we should be allowed to pick more than 3, because there are a lot more than 3 items on this list that I think people are considering about the budget. And maybe it's a problem of compiling the result, but I'd much rather see you say you pick the top 3, it's like going 1, 2, 3. If you ask them to pick the top 6 or 7 or even 10 and go 1 through 10, it would give people a much better ability to choose those things that they feel should be part of what the town is looking at. And certainly, it's always going to be more than 3. There's something, if we could do that, shorten the list, allow more than 3, and maybe a different way of scoring. Right now, when you say top 3 priorities, you're not asking 1, 2, 3, you're just checking off 3 of them. So when you compile it, you're just looking at the number of times that a person picks a certain item on the list. So I know if it's possible to do a 1 to 10 kind of thing, I think it would be more useful.
Are you suggesting, Member Cookett, that the number that the people pick would be in the order that they perceive them to be?
Yeah. So I think it forces them to say, this is the most important thing for me, and this is second, and this is third. Maybe that's a harder choice than just doing 3, I don't know, but I think it's more valuable to kind of see that information. Truthfully, some of the items Elmer doesn't deal with, although we do deal with them on the fringes. We do deal with public health on the fringes because of the fact that we spend a great deal of money we give to the county in order for the county to give it to public health. So they are kind of related to Elmer, a lot of them, even though they may be federal or provincial items. But I could go on about the same points, but shorten it down, give more choices.
We're in the discussion period. Do the members of the committee agree?
They could be adjusted, yeah.
So condense the list and add more options? Would that be fair?
Yeah, and ranking them is a good idea.
To rank them, yes. Owen, can we make that happen?
Yeah, of course we can. The only real technical aspect of ranking is more time consuming for our participants. So with the open selection, sorry?
Instead of 10, could we do 5 that are ranked?
Certainly. Yeah, we
And
can
if
do
there's
whatever
less
council would like.
choices, then it would reduce the reading, so maybe they'll balance out.
So rather than ranking consensus, are we looking for a different number other than 3, and 5 is being suggested?
No, rank 5.
Rank 5,
And-
1 through 5?
Yeah, and adjust the number of choices.
Do we agree? Okay. All right.
Can we?
Any further questions then?
Yes, so just to go back to the wording then, so it primarily came from the senior demographic of participants that I had do this preliminarily, that they were confused about the term priority. So the term, like the actual definition of a priority is the fact or condition of being regarded or treated as more important, and an issue is an important topic or problem for debate or discussion. So the problem that they said to me was, like I said, they felt anxious to neglect like emergency services, healthcare, water, because when are those not a priority for people? It's safety, right? So, but if you were to ask them, what are Elmer's top 3 or top 5 municipal issues that are facing us today, they would pick something different, and they felt more confident doing that. So does anybody else see that, or nobody else sees that concern?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the senior demographics. She's talking about old people. Anybody over, what, 50, 60, 70, something like that? Yeah. I guess the question is, what is this list looking for? Are you looking for items that Elmer should pay more attention to. If you say municipal issues, sometimes the meaning of municipal issues means that these are issues that the town has neglected maybe, or that are out there that need to be fixed, or they're not necessarily the ones that we should pay the most attention to. So I don't know, I agree, I think we maybe, you could change the word priorities, but I'm not
Matters,
sure.
could we change it to matters?
Maybe like top 3 municipal matters, or you don't want to label it as an issue.
Then something else than priority, because it was priority that was making them feel anxious.
Concerns?
Leave it up to Brain Trust.
Concerns? Sure, yeah.
So where are we going?
Well, you're going to come back to council, right?
Yeah.
You're going to council this, so why don't we leave it up to the Brain Trust and come up with a word and come back to us with it? All right.
Staff will come back, we'll have to come back at the 10th council meeting, just like we did last year, with a revised version.
And then the last point about adding the item general government and admin, staffing, wages, and expenditures. Are we able to add that into the items listed?
Are you suggesting that should be a topic of a public survey?
Yes. Like, we're not discussing private information. We're talking about as a whole, because general government admin, staffing, wages, and expenditures, according to our last budget report, is the largest budgetary expenditure. So we seem to be lately having a lot of discussions about, above normal wage increases, about adding staff complements, about attending conferences and budgetary items for travel and conferences and workshops. So if it's such a large budgetary item, should residents not have a say in how much we allocate to that? Or if it's something maybe they won't feel that we should discuss it, but maybe they do feel we should discuss it.
Wages and salaries are topics of, and staffing levels are decisions made by council at another time. Certainly it has an effect on the budget. But whether you would ask that question to the public without background information would be a difficult choice, I would think, from the public. How do they don't have the background information. But that's my thought. Member Cookett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, staff and council remuneration and number of staff and all those items are something that the general public would think of first when you ask them, how is the town doing? They're going to mention that kind of thing. I don't think that that's the purpose of this survey, is to bring that kind of information out. I think the purpose of this survey is to look at a way forward in terms of what the town should be doing. So I don't think that should be part of it. Certainly, it's an important consideration for taxpayers and council to consider that kind of thing. But I don't think it should be part of the survey, because it's kind of a negative question. And so I think you put it better than I did, Mr. Chair.
Owen, you had some thoughts?
I would just also add the primary questions of the survey to really relate to service levels, and that is a way for the community to give feedback directly on staffing and costs and resource allocation for the town. Like, there is the option to select either enhance, maintain, or reduce for all the direct services that we provide. That is in the survey right now.
So if somebody says, sorry, so if a participant in the survey was to select enhance, for example, a department, you're utilizing that as supporting a support, I guess, to increase staff complement for that department then?
Just to give an example, perhaps if we issued this survey and it came back that the top priority like that would be a question, really an issue presented to council, and I know Heather would include that consideration in her budget, and we'd have to plan for that for a future year. And, you know, if the community, if bylaw enforcement is its top priority, perhaps that includes a staffing increase there. Like, that is kind of the function of that question. And I think that's how it would play out into next year's budget.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to give a Parks and Recs example. So last year, we had a lot of feedback from the budget survey with Parks and Rec. So we went through staffing levels with Rob's team, looking at, you know, what parks needed to be done, when. You know, we hired Susie on, implemented the Parks and Recs master plan. All those initiatives came out of the feedback from the budget survey. So all of those staff reports that were generated after that budget survey we were like, wow, we really do need to look at parks. I mean, other than the fact that we looked in our gardens and we needed to weed them, we did have this information from the budget survey, and we took that very seriously. And that came from the public engagement aspect of it. So I looked back at that feedback because we always do these reflections, and I think, wow, you know, as a council and as staff, we've really focused a lot of our last year's work based on the feedback from the budget survey, whether it be monetary comments or just, you know, general comments like what Owen's saying, where what's your top priorities. So a lot of those things that came through that budget survey, we've prioritized as staff as being like, okay, this should be a priority for council. We need to bring these reports forward. We need to focus on, you know, the parks. We need to have Arthur plant 1 million flowers and donate them to the town. We needed the Parks and Beautification Committee. You know, all those things came out of that one little survey question and answer. As much as you don't realize those connections, that budget survey was providing more value than just budgetary or fiscal impacts. So, if that makes sense.
I think Heather and Owen have summed it up nicely, that the results of the budget survey lay the groundwork for the needs and the wants of the people. And when they bring that information back to us, it's up to council and staff to see whether we can make it happen. And that's where you would get into your effects on your budget. How is it going to impact the total package?
Mr. Chair, it's kind of a fun question I was thinking about. Wouldn't it be interesting if on every survey in the country we had two questions that said, do we have enough staff? Do we pay them enough?
Answer would be.
You know, right? Let's put them on every survey. Kind of interesting. I mean, it's a serious question. I don't mean to belittle it, but I don't think belongs on this kind of survey.
Good discussion. Are there any other comments? Okay. Then the survey will be brought back at the next, the revised survey will be brought back in the next meeting.
Yes.
Does that affect the distribution time significantly?
I could take that. Sorry. It won't. Similar to last year, we will have to make a final decision at the next meeting in order to have 6 weeks of runtime ahead of September. So we'll incorporate the comments and bring forward a version, and if there's any tweaks at that point, we'll need to make them at the meeting.
Okay, fair enough. Does that meet the pleasure of the members of the committee? Okay. We have a mover and a seconder on the motion to receive it, the report. All those in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you. Director of Financial Services, report 2025 budget reports.
That report, Finance 14-24, respecting 2025 budget reports to the Finance Committee, be received for information.
Moved by Member Cookett and Member Oslach, and the report. Heather, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you and to members of the committee, staff wanted to provide the Finance Committee with further detailed reports now that we have some of the other dates firmed up. So we want to continue to work on enhancing the understanding of the budget processes and the inputs, and of course, taking those inputs and turning them into tangible tasks. So the high-level budget timelines were presented to council in advance, just to kind of get an idea of if it was going to be feasible for council. So staff would like to have ample opportunity for the Finance Committee to consider a lot of these items, as Owen's going to bring back the budget survey. The one of the survey results timelines that we have is September 4th, so that will still allow for quick turnaround with getting some of the budget feedback survey budget feedback incorporated into the actual high-level operating impact. So I'd like to try to get the high-level operating impact for September 4th, just to kind of give you guys an idea. It's too early at that point to have, a lot of the labor assumptions finalized, but we would have high-level impacts for operating. And of course, if there is feedback coming out of that budget survey that, we needed to enhance a level of service, we would be able to at least have the discussion at the management level to consider those changes. So you'll see coming from the budget survey, lots of different reports coming through. I'm just summarizing them here by saying operating impact changes in the preliminary budget session. That would be one of the discussions that we had in prior council were to do with the community program headcount. That will be an example of one of those reports that would come out of suggestions. So September 4th, hopefully we'll get the budget survey incorporated into a high-level number. The Mayor's Town Hall, the date was firmed up. So the feasibility of, the budget impacts from that meeting, I'd like to consider for October 2nd. It seems like a quick turnaround, but I think that some of the feedback that will come up in the budget survey may foreshadow what's going to happen at the Mayor's Town Hall. That seemed to be what happening last year. So we were able to kind of do some of those reports behind the scenes. So basically, we'd like to keep if the committee agrees, the September 30th deadline for the municipal grants, because we had great debate on that. So I think that was beneficial for, for council to have true feedback on the approval of those. And then by October 2nd, even though it will have quite a few assumptions in it still, I'd like to have the preliminary operating budget with the majority of the feedback considered, and then basically suggestions from senior leadership back to you as Finance Committee members for consideration to council. So in between there, we'll have the municipal grants consideration report. What I'll do in that October 2nd preliminary budget review is I'll use prior budget numbers for the municipal grants as a baseline, unless on September 30th, we have triple the amount of people that are applying for grants. That would be the only change that I would consider putting in that preliminary operating budget on October 2nd. But I think Owen agreed that he could have the report ready for the municipal grants consideration on October 16th. And we would have the final discretionary and capital budget deadline on November 6th. Through this whole process and those months from June till November, we will have preliminary capital and discretionary budgetary considerations spread out through there. I just put one timeline there for October 14th. That's really our first look, or Finance Committee's first look at the capital and discretionary budget. So, but there may be other, reiterations of the capital and discretionary budget that we need to squeeze into September 4th or October 2nd, depending on, we have grants outstanding, we have all these different things happening, we have fundings that may change if we do get some of this feedback from the government on those things. So, hopefully we can get a 2025 operational budget before council on December 4th. The assessment will be close during that time frame, so I should have a decent idea of what the tax rate impact would be. And then pending PSB approvals, which will happen in through there, and EECC approvals, which will happen in through there, we're hoping to have the December 4th at least approved by this committee, and then just January 22nd as a placeholder if council requires it. So I know that's a lot of information, but we just wanted to give this committee an opportunity to, if we've missed anything that you guys want us to report on, please bring it up, because this is the timeline that we're going to be working towards as the management team.
It is an energetic schedule for sure. Member Cookage?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Remind us when UMF grants come through. When do we know UMF? Is it before this deadline, or is it after January?
It will probably be in November, I'm assuming.
Okay, sometime before before we're calling the end, yeah.
Yeah.
Another comment, if I may, Mr. Chair? Just looking at the mayor's town hall, for those people out there that are looking at us right now, if you have questions about staff complement, the number of staff we have, or what we pay them, or do we need new ones, the mayor's town hall is a great time to put the mayor on the spot. So come on down and ask the question.
Thank you. Any members have any other questions? Okay. Then the schedule has been moved and seconded as a report. All those in favor? And the motion is carried.
There you go. Where are we here?
Business.
New business and inquiries by members? Seeing none? Ask for a motion for adjournment.
That the committee do now adjourn at 8:25 PM.
Member Chapman, Member Osnich? All those in favor? The motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. We're at item 9, action items. Resolution.
That report Finance 13-24 entitled Final Annual Investment Report 2023 be received for information.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Desrosiers, Councilor Chapman. Heather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you and to members of the council, this report is standard and reissued always after the Earth financial statements have been released at their AGM. So with that AGM was declared a dividend by Earth for the town of Elmer. We are shareholders in Earth. And the dividend, which is posted directly to the Council Initiatives Reserve with the year-end entries, has now added $118,000 to the Council Initiatives Reserve for a total of $389,000. So when council's looking at the budget for next year for capital and discretionary, they may want to think about projects that they want to sponsor out of that reserve. But that was a change that Andy had made when he first came in to suggest to council that, council should be able to control ownership of that specific thing to sponsor great projects. So that is a good news thing for Elmer, and that's the only change on this report. Everything else was already reported on in February or March.
Thank you. Council. Comments? Another good news report. Thank you. I'll call those in favor of the resolution. It's carried. Thank you. 9.2, Director of Legislative Services, Municipal Alcohol Policy Resolution.
That report clerk 19-24 be received for information, and then that council direct staff to present the revised municipal alcohol policy by bylaw at a future meeting of council.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Chapman, Deputy Mayor Barber. Owen.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just wanted to provide a very high-level summary of what the municipal alcohol policy is. It is simply a set of rules and guidelines for the management and control of the use of alcohol during events on town property. So really, it's focused on safety, legal compliance, and liability protection for both the town as well as our users. The current policy has been in place since 1994. There was a significant public consultation process in 1994 to develop it. If we were to make any significant amendments to it, we would probably want to undertake a similar approach. The amendments before you today they're really just they're a reorganization as well as an update to make us compliant with new provincial policy issued in 2019, as well as to bring us up to date with some of our other special events policies here at the town, specifically our insurance requirement. So that is what's before you. These are really minor updates, administrative, to the municipal alcohol policy. And if there's any questions, be happy to answer them.
Council. See no questions. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Any new business or matters of urgency? Reading of bylaws, resolutions.
That council give 3 readings to and approves bylaw 46-24, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 57-99, being the zoning bylaw for the town of Elmer. Bylaw 47-24 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 07-18 as amended, as referred to as the procedural bylaw, and bylaw 48-24 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council held at the regular council meeting on June 5th, 2024.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Oslach, Councillor Chapman. Any questions or comments in any of these? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's carried. Inquiries by members. Statements and committee reports. Deputy Mayor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to recognize the excellent work that Progress Building Systems have made on their new structure on the bend of Beach and Progress. Very impressive building. And they're working on completing the landscape, so it'll be finished when they get to their official opening. It is open now as a soft opening, but a very great asset to the industrial park.
Report of the mayor. I had a long report, but I'll make it longer next month. Thank you. Any notices of motion? Meeting closed to the public. We have resolutions.
The council moves into a meeting closed to the public at 8:32 p.m. to discuss the following matters. Director of Legislative Services reports, Clerk 20-24, Police Service Board member, community member appointment, and Director of Legislative Services, Clerk Report 21-24, Information Technology Policy Updates. And consideration of these matters is closed to the public pursuant to the Municipal Act, Section 239(2)A and B, as amended, as the subject matters pertains to the security of the property of the municipality or local board and personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Desrosiers, Deputy Mayor Barber. All those in favor? That is carried. Take a brief recess and move into close.
from the meeting closed to the public at 8:41 PM and reports the following. That council received for information, report clerk 20-24 respecting police service board community member appointments and provided staff direction to insert the name of Paul Leaking into bylaw 49-24 for consideration in open session. And that council received for information, report clerk 21-24 information technology policy updates and approved information security related policy updates.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Desrosiers, Councilor Oslach. All those in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn.
We actually just have the bylaw to adopt.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I missed those, yes.
That council gives 3 readings to and approves bylaw 49-24 being a bylaw to 29-24 being a bylaw to make the necessary appointments, necessary council and citizen appointments to committees and boards regarding the police service board.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Van Raes, Deputy Mayor Barber. All those in favor? Is carried. Now motion to adjourn.
And that council do now adjourn at 8:42 PM.
Mover and seconder, Councilor Desrosiers, Councilor Oslach. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy.